Last panel for the day, and then we will have our capstone be a fireside chat conversation. But for our last panel, we are talking about promotions in the age of AI. So we are going to ask our panelists some conversations. I imagine that this will be one where a lot of expertise might also live in the room. So as I ask the questions to our various panelists, I might encourage you to simultaneously answer them for yourself, because as you're thinking about hiring, as you're thinking about upskilling, it might be valuable for you, and it might also be valuable as you are hiring your team. For this panel, as I said, we're discussing the fastest ways to advance your engineering career, most in-demand skills and strategies. Joining us virtually, Khanda, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Excellent. All right. Khanda Natarajan, the Vice President of Hosting Services at GSK. So we just got to speak with your colleague, responsible for vision, strategy, and roadmap for the modernization and transformation of the global infrastructure technologies, ensuring that they are digital friendly. Your responsibilities include cloud services, identity and access management, network services, and you've successfully led the transformation from technology operations to service operations by implementing platform engineering and DevOps practices. Are you in Princeton today, Khanda?
Yes, I am.
And I'm just curious, who has ridden the train in the Northeast Corridor, by show of hands? Who's also ridden the Dinky? No one?
Who's been to the
Just
Dinky
me?
Bar? You should ask that.
It's the teeny tiny train that connects the Northeast Corridor. Khanda, thanks for joining us virtually. Also on this panel, I want to welcome to the stage Naveed Apukatan. Where are you, Naveed? Excellent. Welcome. Grab a microphone, grab a chair. Naveed has been a site reliability engineer leader for nearly 2 decades. I know that you love to travel, yeah? Balancing innovation at work with time spent discovering the beauty of nature and new cultures.
Of course, yeah.
Where have you traveled recently?
Recently, as in
I don't
to
know.
San
Like,
Jose. So,
does that pass your cultural
No.
bar? No offense, San
But-
Jose natives.
but yesterday we had a networking dinner. It was pretty nice place. But really, I like to travel, and the reason is that what helps me this travel, I like family travels. It's not like a kind of person who go explore, but comfort family travel, right? But this opens a lot of perspectives and different cultures, right? And that's when recently I got a chance to go to a few European cities,
Excellent.
and that was amazing. Right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Europe, new perspectives. Perhaps we
Right.
might even hire for those additional perspectives. All right,
Of course,
Naveed,
right?
you get our first chair. Thank you for the panel.
Thanks for having me today.
Welcome, welcome. Terry, are you next? Excellent. Terry Fu is a serial entrepreneur, CEO, and co-founder of Spectro Cloud. This is your third startup, focusing on multi-cluster Kubernetes management across any environment. You're hiring, yeah? I'm just saying they're hiring. You previously founded Clicker and also a P2P video streaming system way before Netflix existed. So you have seen the entire life cycle, from bare metal servers to visualization to cloud, and now full cycle repatriation, that's a word, back to bare metal data center and edge environments driven by the demands of AI.
Yes, that's
Excellent.
right.
Welcome, Terry.
Thank
Grab
you.
a chair. Ganesh Mani, passionate about building scalable platforms, driving engineering culture, and aligning technology, strategy, and business outcomes. At Geico, focused on improving efficiency, driving performance improvements, and cost optimization. As we talked, though, really one of your passions is chess.
Yes, it is.
Except that you're just about to lose to one of your kids. Is that true?
Yeah,
I
he's
mean-
beating me left and right, so I can't help it.
There's the moment. My kid is taller than I am. She's stronger than I am. Welcome. Grab a seat on our panel.
Thank you so much.
All right. Naveed, Terry, Ganesh, and Khanda, sit closer to y'all. So we are talking about promotions in the age of AI. And I would love to hear, to kick us off, from each one of you, one skill or one experience that makes a candidate stand out to you. As you are thinking about hiring, skills that are rare, in demand. What is one skill or one experience that stands out to you?
I'll
Please kick us off.
So I want to talk about when we look at the skills, right? So we conduct a lot of technical interviews, right? And then finally we decide and make an offer. But what is even more important is the kind of cultural fitment someone is bringing in, right? So I spend a lot of timing. So I'm a hiring manager, and hiring is something I never outsource, right? I personally sit down, review every single resume coming into me. I handpick the kind of people we want to look into. I go through every line of feedbacks that is coming to me before I make my hire decision, because I believe this is the most important decision you're going to make in the engineering project, right? So with that, one of the very important thing, non-negotiable thing for me is what I look forward is the genuinity, right? So when we speak with the candidates, so you see a lot of things in the resume people that look into, and now this is as we're talking about AI era, right? Most of the resumes what we see is AI prepared, right? So now, how do you really stand out to see that people, what you have really done, and what is AI written for you, right? So this is something see, I can't stress enough of this technique, which is called this is something Elon Musk also has been telling on his interview tricks, is to finding out the fake projects that people has been putting in, right? So if I find something see someone has claimed that something they have done, but they have not been very genuine to it, I don't go forward, even if they crack any other interviews. Because
There's
that genuinity and authenticity is something I want to bring to my team.
Yeah, and there's that cultural fit that you're describing,
Absolutely,
and
yes.
the
And it
sincerity,
starts with authenticity, right?
Yeah, authenticity,
Exactly.
genuineness.
And culture is not one thing, but when you bring in the genuinity, that starts.
That's a deal breaker. And I'm hearing you with the adage of hire slow, fire fast, because hopefully you don't ever have to fire them because that hire is so high quality.
Absolutely.
Kand, I want to kick it over to you. What is the one skill or experience that you prioritize?
So for me, obviously the brass tacks or the basics are the technical experience and the ability to code that is there, right? But what would really stand out is, as Neville was saying, right? Authenticity is important, integrity, but how do I find that, right? There are going to be resumes that's going to talk a lot about people in whatever shape or form, right? But it is the conversation. Typically, when I do hirings, uh, I personally make sure I talk to the person, right? And then there is a series of panels that happen, at least 2 to 3 panels in my organization, uh, so that we can catch the fit for the person, right? So particularly in the current day and age, when we are looking to hire, I look for more than just somebody who can code. I look for somebody who can understand how they can replicate themselves with the newer technologies that is there, right? If somebody says I can do this, that's great, but can I replicate myself and do 3 times what I do is going to be key. Those are some of the questions that I ask to see how they respond and the approach they take to answering the question, right? If that makes sense.
You're really emphasizing this notion of I'm not staying in this role, but thinking about how can I automate this role, replicate myself, scale myself so that I'm continually growing into whatever it might be that's next.
Yeah.
Awesome. Terry, how about you? One skill, one experience?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so I don't mind people actually use AI tool, right? I won't call it cheating, but they can use AI assisted, right, during the interview to answer some questions. But more importantly is beyond just using AI as a tool, that the candidate actually truly understand the concept, will be able to go deep. That is really the key.
Yeah. I'm laughing only because I tried vibe coding, and you would be unsurprised to realize I didn't actually understand it. I would not be your first hire. Ganesh, how about you? One thing?
So to me, I think one of the common theme we spoke about today is about AI is that AI is not going to solve the problem for you, right? you have to bring the problem to AI and then solve for it. So to me, critical thinking is one of the important aspect, and problem solving skills is some of the aspect that can vary across the levels. But how did they think about the problem? How did they approach the problem? And then what avenues they use to solve the problem is something that could differentiate a good candidate versus great candidate, I would say.
And I love that distinction between good and great, that it is how are you using the tool that both of you are speaking about. The tool is not necessarily cheating, but how do you use it and how do you guide it? What's the critical thinking that actually makes it different? Ganesh, I want to stay with you. So let's imagine that there's a candidate who doesn't have any engineering or AI experience. What's the fastest way for them to build that part of their resume? Is there a class or a certification or a resource that you would encourage them to pursue?
It's a great question, I would say. To me, building experience, especially with the new technology, I would suggest a three-step approach, in my opinion. First is learning the technology itself. There is no shortcut at all. You have to learn the technology. I think we have all been there where something new comes out. Suddenly it feels like everybody's an expert, and then we kind of feel left out, right? That's the kind of a trend. But here is the truth though, right? These days, to get started, you don't need to get burden yourself into textbooks, or you need not chase 5 different certifications, right? You have to just start small. And learning today is not about qualification or even certification, I would say. It is about curiosity, and then how fast you can get your hands-on experience, right? So that is the key. So in to answer your question, to get started in AI, there are tons of online material and resources, I would say. One suggestion I would give is Andre Karapati has been awesome in YouTube community, right? He kind of covers in depth about the AI technology itself. That would be one of my recommendation. The second is there are a lot of open source AI community, right? One thing that I really like is Hugging Face, where we use a lot. The good thing about is there are a lot of pre-trained AI models available, so that if an engineer want to get started, they can immediately use it and integrate it with their workflows and so on. So with these tools, I think any engineer can start coding within days or even hours. So that is the beauty of learning today, in my opinion. The second step would be, I often see that engineers learn a lot, but they kind of get stalled because they stop at learning, right? So how do you take learning from experimentation would be the second step. So within the AI, I would say begin with using AI as a user, and then really show the value to your team and the organization. So one example I would share is at Geico, we are really very much focused on developer productivity, as well as shipping features to our customers faster. So for that, we have rolled out GitHub AI Copilot across the teams. So, but here we are not just handing out licenses to the team, but rather we are challenging the engineers to really show how AI is actually helping them in their day-to-day work, and then show really value. The results that we see currently is amazing, right? We kind of see around 31% reduction in code developed by engineers, wherein we see a totally new aspect of them helping us to improve value and so on and so forth. So that is great. The third one, if I may, is that how do you identify opportunities, be it internal within your company or internal to your team, will be very critical. For example, take any domain. If you are a product engineering team, you can use LLMs to summarize all the user feedback. If you are an SRE, you can use AI to prevent incidents and so on. So the key is to focus on the opportunities that exist and then really show value. So if you do that, I strongly believe that you can stop chasing AI and start leading with it.
I think it's so interesting that no longer are certifications or external validations of understanding really valued, that this is much more around use YouTube, use open source, train yourself, and then practice.
Yes.
Practice internal to your team and then seek out opportunities. I've been watching our fellow panelists nod vigorously as you were speaking. Any disagreement on anything?
No, I fully agree to this. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Fully aligned.
One thing I would add is as we learn new technologies, right, and particularly from an organization where I'm not a technology organization, but I'm an organization that consumes the technology that comes out of Silicon Valley. Think of it that way, right? It is important for people to unlearn what they have already learned. Right? I think that's the key part, right? The curiosity and the ability to just let go of what you know and grab onto what you don't know and move on with it becomes very important from a mental state or mindset standpoint. I think that is something people have to cultivate.
And Kana, if I'm understanding you right, there is this sense of like we get anchored in prior models. I think about the tipping point quite a bit. Like, why do we use the QWERTY keyboard, even though it's actually like the worst design possible? So unlearning is sometimes one of the most challenging things. One of the things that we were talking about previously is how do we unlock the real value of AI? And unlearning is one piece of it. Is there more that you would add to help folks realize the true or the complete value of AI?
Yeah, so if I look at AI, the disruption that's making, it's here to stay, right? It's not going to be a flash in the pan type of thing, right? This is the next huge wave that has happened. And I basically break AI engineers that are going to be working with AI in two parts, essentially, right? One is people who are going to create this cool products that comes from which can be consumed or used in industries like ours, right? And then there needs to be engineers in industries like ours where they need to know how to take the products and use it effectively in our world, right? So I look in my world for people who have the domain expertise, who have the business understanding, and then bring all the technologies that have been developed or produced or productized in the market. How can they be brought to bear and brought to add value within a company like myself, right? I think that thinking of how to use it, how to build it becomes very important.
And part of what you're articulating that's so valuable is the context here.
Yes.
That it isn't just I'm building an AI tool because it's cool to build an AI tool and I'm smart enough to develop it using my AI tool. It's really what is the business value? We've talked a lot about ROI throughout the day, but also understanding what's the environment where this actually creates the most value.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
brilliant.
you don't want to use a product just because it's cool, right? It is adding a business value. There is a change in the business dimension that you're bringing because of the capabilities that a technology like AI brings.
Yes, and really seeing the value. Terry, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually want engineers not thinking them as an engineer anymore in the AI era, right? So essentially, everyone become a product person. What you really need is really be able to articulate the idea, right, and tell what's the desire, right, what's the intent, and then let AI to generate the majority of the scaling for you, and then you will be able to do some modification. So the barrier of the mundane code become really, really low. But the deep domain knowledge is really the key. So that is really the transition, right, in this new era. Yeah.
Which sort of there has historically been a divide between product and engineering. And what I'm hearing you say is that actually goes away potentially in this future state with AI because the mundane things that really no one wants to do can be automated to unlock that higher IQ, higher creativity work. And Terry, staying with you for one more minute, you were talking previously with me about hands-on experiences. I'm curious, as you're thinking about hands-on experiences, which ones would you encourage people to do? So for instance, should they spend time fine-tuning an LLM, applying reinforcement, tackling a real problem? Where would you have people do hands-on work so that they erase prior biases or blend those worlds?
So that I would say really depends on the size of a company. So I think end of the day, most of the foundational model will become a commodity, right? So when OpenAI release something, right, and Google will release something, and right, Llama 3 will pick up very quickly. So within 6 months, pretty much the ground is leveled again, right? So really, I think ultimately the uniqueness of the AI capability all tied to your private data, right? So if it's large enterprise, they can afford to build their own private model. So that maybe they will do some fine tuning and the reinforced learning, right? And just build their own model. But that obviously is more costly. And the more easy way for a smaller company to very quickly get a value out of the foundational model, but still augment with their own data, is using RAG, right? So this way you will be able to very easily plug in your private data, right? And then build a data, a vector database, and then use retriever and chunking and query, and then you will be able to augment with the foundational model, but with your private data knowledge. Yeah.
And using that is a real differentiator, lets you be hands-on.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Naveen, I want to switch gears a little bit. Earlier, when we were talking about things you would hire for, it sounds like soft skills are making a
Absolutely.
resurgence.
For sure.
And
yeah.
so, whether that's project management or other pieces, I am curious from your perspective, what's the number one soft skill that you think engineering leaders need? And how can they improve it? Either develop it or improve it?
For sure. Yeah. So soft skills. So when we talk about the AI, so I'm sure anywhere a couple of technologists meeting together, the discussion is about what are the new skills that you'll carry forward and what do you need to acquire, right? And everywhere you have seen that the soft skills is something that AI is not going to take over, especially when it needs an emotional connect, right? Empathy and things like that. And you have a long list of things in different places you see. But the most important thing for me, whether you're a product owner, you're an engineer, you're a developer, SRE, the most important thing you need to have is your cognitive abilities, right? The critical thinking part. So if you have that, right, that is the only thing you need to navigate right now, and you cannot outsource to AI today. So, for example, so in a recent interview, like somewhere in a conversation, Sam Altman was talking about he meeting a startup where it's just one founder who made a 1 billion startup, right? So he had that critical thinking to identify an opportunity and find a solution. And when you have that, now you can AI can write your code, AI can deploy your production infrastructure, and pretty much everything else. But this one thing is something right now capable of, and this is something like even without AI. So when we look at our engineering workforce, right? So pretty much, I'll categorize it in two ways, right? So there are people who will engineer. So you're a developer and you have got some skills like say Java, Python, whatever that is, and you're an engineer who will wait for a requirements to come in so that you can start your work, right? And there is people who with the product mindset, right? So they don't wait for someone to come and tell you, but they understand the customer requirements, what features, what gaps you have, what problems your product has, and they pick up by themselves, thinking that, oh, I have a problem to solve in front of me, and how I can solve it by applying that cognitive abilities. That is the thing which is irreplaceable. And these are the most valuable engineers in your team, even not in the AI era. And this is one thing we are going to carry forward in the AI era. And everything else pretty much deploying your Terraform, building a cloud, coding, all these things will be taken over by AI, but this is going to be here.
Yeah, and it sounds like the emphasis on having that product mindset, the creativity, the critical thinking, sort of that lean forward,
Absolutely.
that once upon a time an engineer maybe could sit back and say, what are my requirements? But AI is really going to make that an era of the past.
All right.
I am curious, any other panelists, Konda, Tenri, Grub?
Maybe I would just add, I totally agree with that, Naveen. I think Kanda also alluded to it. To me, it is more about thinking more about outcome and less about thinking about the output, right? For example, AI is exciting. Any engineers you take, they will come up with a lot of ideas, designs, architecture, and solution end to end, right? Because engineers by default are very curious, right? And then they wanted to build things. But if you ask them the question, why are we even building this? What problems are we solving for our customers? What is the business outcome? We won't get a lot of good answers, right? That's where I think as engineer leaders, it is it is very imperative to connect the technology and the impact. And then I usually reiterate on the outcome, be it in town hall, be it in roadmap planning, and so on, so that once they get this mindset, the way they approach the problem and then how they kind of solve the problem is very different and very impactful as well.
And what I'm hearing you say is that you can hire for that, but you can also develop that
Exactly.
change in mindset to pay much more attention to output, return on investment, problem solve, customer satisfaction versus how many hours did I code for this?
Exactly.
Great. All right, last question. Whoop, Khanda, you were about to say something. Sorry, please jump in.
No, one thing I quickly wanted to add there, right? So as with the new technologies like this, right? Internet, iPhones, or now AI. One of the things that an engineering leader or engineer should have is courage to disrupt, right? And this is where I talk about unlearning, right? I'm used to working in a certain way. We need to change that. And the second thing is humility and openness to listen to others so that you can create a culture of innovation within the organization. It is very important to do that so that adoption of new technology becomes more simple, seamless, and easy.
Yeah. The humility and curiosity really underlying that mindset of right now there's more we don't know than we know, and how can we unlearn things and continue to be voracious learners throughout the process.
Correct. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, Khanda, I will stay with you. Last word on the panel. One thing that might have been your mic drop moment, but is there anything you would like to leave the room with?
Well, the big thing is I'm trying to figure out how I can replace myself with AI. I'm not kidding. Like the job that I do should not exist tomorrow. That's
and what I love is you're hiring for that mindset. You are embracing that mindset.
I need brains that can come and do that for me.
And, okay, you are hiring the person who can replace you with AI. I love it. Challenge issued for the room. All right, Naveed, last thing that you'd like to leave the room with?
No, for sure. So one more thing, so when we talk about the soft skills specifically, right? So as we develop all of the skills, so two things, again, you need to continue to be doing. One is constantly taking feedbacks, constantly improving it, and adaptability, right? So things are changing more faster than ever. So getting into the new things, self-adaptability, and you should not wait for someone just to come and tell you what you should be doing. So adapt quickly, take the feedbacks, get involved, understand the problems, apply your critical thinking, and keep on going.
And what I love about what you're saying is how it connects with, there's a humility in that willingness to take the feedback and learn. Spectacular.
Of course.
Henry?
So I would say, the first wave of AI, it's all the infrastructure company will make money, right? NVIDIA and including company like us, right, doing Kubernetes, which is AI runtime. But ultimately, I think the second wave of the AI's true value is really in the application and solutions. And that really require AI deeply married with the domain knowledge, right? And that's really, I think, all vendors like GSK and others, right? You guys have the data, have the domain knowledge, right? Be able to build a particular solution to solve a particular problem. I think that's really the key.
And that the solutions have to really be in that combined contextual domain expertise, not just in the developer tool.
Yeah.
Love it. Last word?
To me, I think this is just the start of the journey. I see a lot of interesting problems being solved with AI. So to me, being very curious and then keep learning and then enjoy the journey and then keep contributing is what I would say.
Yeah. And that we're just one step, but a journey begins with a single step.
Exactly.
Excellent. Round of applause for our awesome panelists. Thank you.